And, one of the things is kind of, reflecting back on everything that you were kind of sharing right there. And there's a conversation I had a couple months ago with Brett Jennings. And, Jennings he's just relentless in everything he does. And we ended up on the phone and he hadn't announced him accomplishing the BHAG that they hit last year, which was a billion closed in real estate. And, he went on a little, kind of a couple minutes, just kind of reflecting back. And he said, one of the things that cause my question to him was, what other doors have opened up? And so we started talking about, ownership equity in all the other doors that open that we know that people get bites of the apple for us as real estate agents, that we take it on the chin to acquire the cost of a client, but yet we hand it over to other people that get bites of the apple that make money on it for nothing, with us just handing deals to them. And so one of the things that, cause we always talk about is that, the more successful you become, the more doors open. And if you don't know how to look for that opportunity and know your worth, you don't know how to position yourself. And one of the things Jennings was saying, he was like, man, he goes, I'm so grateful for you guys. He goes, I'm grateful that you were in the market you were in. And he said, because if you guys were not in that low price point market, you wouldn't have changed the thinking for me, talking about him in one of the highest price point markets on the planet.
Such a great example.
But he has that mentality that he's not in the highest price point because he behaves in a way as if he was in our market when your average sales price is 100,000 when you're trying to grow and scale. And it was just, it was so refreshing hearing somebody like him say that, and how he thinks. And he's not thinking about, he's not being rewarded for bad behavior. Like you gave the example of if we were doing what we were doing in San Diego, we wouldn't have paid attention to the details like we did. And that's what I always tell people, like, if y'all ain't paying attention to the details, or if somebody tells you details don't matter, like run away from them, like sprint away from that person, because the details do matter. And then you take somebody that's disciplined, like a Brett Jennings, in, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9 average sales price, and you behave in a way as if you're only dealing with the margin of 100,000 sales price, ain't nobody going to mess with you in your business IQ. Nobody. They can't touch you. And so, I love that. I love those details. I don't even know how we got on this conversation, but it is, like you said, being so, kind of going through that, but it's through those lessons. But it's also, man, like I wouldn't change our market and our price point for nothing. I mean, it shaped how we look at things. It shaped how we see things. It shaped who we reached out to, who we connected with, who we learned from. Like, I mean, Jay Abraham, that guy, like understanding the discipline that we had to go through, but then you strap in his concepts, his viewpoints into, game changer. We know this to be true. You don't have to personally have that experience. You can borrow the experience of others. Mm-hmm. And so, the more you know of, the road that we traveled, then that's an experience you can borrow, which allows you to collapse time. And that's really what it's about is that. And so I loved what you said about being the world-class connector. And so let's go to Giselle's question specifically, and let's talk about what we know to be true from a problem standpoint. And she's like, how do you attract an independent brokerage or a market center? Well, let's talk about what we know to be true, that the problems that keep an independent broker up at night and somebody that's leading or running a market center, what's keeping them awake at night? And you got to be aware of what's keeping them up at night. And more than likely, and it was the path we chose, hey, buy the franchise or go independent. That was the best of options that we weighed. Now, how we came to that conclusion is we just did the math, and we got real clear on the math. and also, you know, not having to be tied to a long-term agreement that took some of the control and the decision making out of what we were trying to accomplish. And so what I love what you said there, and you and I've said this numerous times, is that if you truly say you care about your people, because as an independent, you're trying to keep a little bit more of the dollar so you can reinvest back into value add back to your team, either in adding additional support, being able to give them a little bit more money, being able to provide a little bit more training, being able to provide something. You're trying to take those dollars and reinvest if you truly care. Like we were thinking, man, how can we do something long-term? How could we provide healthcare? How could we, you know, give them an ownership? Like we, you know, what's the great game of business? What is the, to where you give them a piece of, yeah. So you give them a piece of, of the game. But at the end of the day, when you really chisel it down and you sharpen the pencil and you put it to paper, the math just doesn't make sense. And so what I would always tell, you know, independents and brokers is like, you know, when I hear them say, man, I really truly care about my people, I don't want to lose any of them. It's just the little things like that the business doesn't allow you, because the math doesn't make sense to be able to provide. And so those are what, Giselle and everybody else that I know it's on your mind, those are the problems. But what Jay said a little bit earlier was that you don't have to have that experience, but you've got to be able to connect them with somebody that has. That's where you've got to become world-class at inviting. Vincent Koo 101, world-class at inviting them to a conversation, inviting them to a webinar, inviting them to a video, inviting them to an event, inviting them to a training. If I would say, cuz as we're just kind of talking out loud through here, if you want to accelerate your growth with agent attraction, if you're going to become world-class at anything, it's world-class at inviting them to something that's going to resonate with where they're at in their career and the problems they're trying to solve. Yep. And if you guys have heard us say this for 4 years, what's the first rule of Fight Club? You don't talk about Fight Club. Right. What's the first rule of EXP? You do not talk about EXP. Like EXP never even has to come up. It doesn't. I mean, honestly, yeah, it doesn't. It's the value add that you're helping them solve their problem.